Good afternoon, everyone. I am Thabiseng Mokoena.
And I'm Claudia Malan.
We are from Eduvos. It's a pleasure to meet each and every one of you. We are from one of South Africa's largest private higher education institutions with 12 campuses across our beautiful country, offering over 27 internationally recognized qualifications.
Tonight, I just want to say thank you for each of you for joining us. Tonight, you will be learning about one of our funding partners with the name of Fundi. And it's quite interesting, so you are at the right place tonight.
We at Eduvos believe that higher education should be accessible to all and that funding should not be a barrier to your future studies. Here at Eduvos, we prefer to think of education as an investment rather than an expense.
That's quite interesting, and Tabi Singh. I just want to mention, like our former president Nelson Mandela once said, education is the most powerful weapon in which we can use to change the world. So really let that sink in tonight because you are in control of your education and you will always have a way out.
Right. I think looking at the cost of higher education, Claudia, might be daunting to quite a few of our parents and students. And the times that we find ourselves in is quite overwhelming as well. But if you break it into smaller increments, you'll realize that this investment is manageable and within your grasp.
That is so correct. And Tabi saying, I think all of us can agree that to get your investment return, here at Eduvos, we equipped you with the relevant accredited qualifications to ensure you that you don't just survive, but you thrive, because we all want to make a success after our studies.
So, with us this evening, we're proud to present our Fundi representatives to explain their funding solutions to you all. Over to you, our dear presenter, Mr. Duncan Nisi.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Singh, and thank you, Claudia. Like Singh said, my name is Duncan. I'm Duncan Mnisi. I am from an organization called Fundi. Fundi was basically known as EduLoan previously. What I'll be doing is I'll basically taking you through how we basically resolve a funding need, and just take you through straight into it. So in essence, as you would know, education is expensive. It's standard. It has to be paid for. It's not free. As much as we think it is free, it is not. Someone has to pay for it. So let's get straight into it in terms of who is Fundi, how do we assist students, and what happens in. So Fundi was previously known as EduLoan, and is South Africa's leading education finance education fund, and they've been existing for over 25 years. Fundi specializes purely on education finance, and that's why basically it's the leading financial institution in the country in terms of just dealing with financing students for their fees. We have basically at the center of basically what we call technology and education finance, because we apply technology to basically provide you with those fees. And that being said, into our next slide, it's just basically how many students we have assisted. Now, Fundi has assisted over 18,886 students, and that is just in the last 12 months alone. You would have seen that in total, we have about 1.6 million students that we have assisted in the history of Fundi. And that just basically just shows you basically why we're saying that we are the leading financial service provider in terms of assisting students with their education needs. Now, that being said, into my next slide is basically then what exactly is the education solution? In other words, what does exactly mean? And the simple things is that we believe education is the key to unlocking one's dreams. There's an ethos we have, which in Fundi is called enabling dreams. So we offer government employees and their loved ones, as well as education loans at preferential interest rates. And we cover quite a vast range of education needs. And we cover those in holistic. Let me get into it. What do we mean by that? We cover firstly tertiary education. We cover postgraduate education. So for those of you who are going to go in there, study, finish your 3-year degrees, undergraduate, we cover the postgraduate degrees as well. We cover also executive education. So for those of you who are going to go and flying up high and you have other needs and you want to do your masters, you want to do your MBAs and so on, we cover those as well. And then we also cover short learning courses as well, and then learning programs as well. So as long as basically it's a study finance that you need in terms of education, Fundi covers it. And that takes us basically to our next slide in terms of what type of fees then do we do in covering. And simply put, I'm going to basically put it in a list form. Study fees, I think you guys would understand. It's study fees, it's school fees, as we call it. Then what exactly is covered in that? It's your registration fees. It's your standing balances. As you would know, you want to study. The first thing you need to do before you can even secure your space, basically, and say, I am a student of Eduvos. You need to basically pay your registration fees. It's well and well for Eduvos to basically give you an acceptance letter, but you can really say, I'm a student of Eduvos once your registration fees is paid for. That is covered. Also, we cover what we call outstanding fees or outstanding balances. And that's where basically you come in and say, look, I'm already studying and I need my fees to be paid. And I need to get my results. I need to know whether I've passed or not. Those outstanding fees are paid by Fundi. And then we cover also textbooks. We cover accommodation loans. You will need a place to stay and you need to basically pay for that. We cover that as well. You need basically technology, which is basically your laptops and your tablets and your cell phones, and we cover that as well. I'm not sure why you students want to do your assignments and your your typical exams on iPhones, but nonetheless you do it, and we cover that as well. We're not going to ask you why that is the important part. And then we also basically cover also your study tools. So those who are in the science and the biosciences and so on, you will know that you also different tools that you need, and we basically get in there and then we cover those tools as well. And then also we also cover uniforms and stationaries. You might just wonder, why would you even do that? Well, you know that white coat, we cover that too. And we cover also your stationery that you need. And that's basically your education solutions that we provide as Fundi. And then that takes me basically to what we call a more in-depth discussion about our study loans. So we've tailored this loans for students in terms of what do they need, and we cover basically private and public institutions. So what do I mean by public institutions? I will basically your typical universities, and your typical universities will be the colleges and so on that are covered. So let me give you, for example, in the Eduvos example, you will have your colleges and you'll have your MGI type of things where it's those type of universities that we cover. So whether you're at UJ and so on, we cover those ones. Private and public, we are covered. And then we also obviously we cover, as I was saying to you guys earlier on, short courses and learning courses, we covered. So let's get into how it works. How it works is this: you come basically to Fundi and you'll say, look, I have a need, and my need is a study loan. And then basically what we do is we provide you with a funding that specifically speaks to that need. If you come to Fundi and say, I have a need and my need is accommodation, we will cover you for that. If you said my need is just a laptop and so on, we will cover that as well. It doesn't have to be a combination of those. It doesn't have to be a study loan and accommodation and things. It can be one of the others. We will still cover it as well. It could be just like, look, I just don't need the whole thing in terms of the whole suite of accommodation funding. I don't need also basically for tech. I just need only for a laptop loan and my printer and my study desk. And we will cover that too, just that alone. So it can be a combination of things. And the benefits of a Fundi loan, in essence, is that it's flexible in terms of its payment. We move from 3 months to 36 months in terms of a payment structure. So, and we paid all upfront to the university. And once we paid all upfront to the institution, what happens is that you basically and your loved ones are able to just focus on studies, leave the financing part, because between that 3 months and 36 months, those installments basically are taken care of by basically making repayments. But what's important is that you don't have to worry about your outstanding fees. You don't have to worry about your results not coming out. You don't have to worry about registration. You just basically focus on what you are doing, which is basically succeeding in your education dreams. And that's basically the part of it. Then there's what we call basically the education tools loan. Now that is my next slide. And that education tools loan is literally basically the technology part of your study loan. What does this mean is that we know that in this day and age, there is no way you are going to be able to get through your education journey, without needing a laptop. You're going to basically submit your assignments through that. You're going to do some of your exams through that. You're going to do your research through that. You're going to do most of your collaboration with your peers through a laptop. And you're going to basically use either your phone or you're going to use basically a tool. And when I say tool, I'm going as far as musical instruments for that matter. And we know that without those tools, there is no way you're going to get through. We cover that as well. So we partnered with organizations that are able to basically assist us in ensuring that whatever it is, as long as it's an education tool, be it a laptop, a cell phone, a tablet, and so on, we are able to basically provide you with that. It's just a matter of you telling us what you need. Obviously, it's up to you to choose which product you need. Some people might say, no, I need a tablet, or no, I work better on the phone, and and someone saying, no, I just need a simple laptop. We cover that all this and things and such things. Basically, when we cover them, the same applies with your study loan, because we offer such reduced repayment terms, and we offer them on a what we call a prolonged period of time, which is 3 months to 36 months. That allows you basically to focus on your assignments and your classes and so on without having to actually miss any of those because you don't have those tools. And our payment terms, as I said previously, they're between 3 months and 36 months, and they cover within that. All you have to do basically is simply apply. And that basically takes care of the education tools loans. Then the other part is that, as some you might know, which is on my next slide, is what we'll refer to in the next one is your accommodation. Some of you might not have the privilege of having to stay at home. Some of you might have the privilege of staying at home and just decide, you know what, I'm good at home. I've stayed here long enough. Great. Now that you have that need, we will cover your accommodation loan. All you have to basically do is we cover rental on off campus and on at campus, but it has to be an accredited institution. So what we mean by that is that you can't just go and pick Intabiseng's bedroom and decide to stay at it. As great as she is, you cannot stay at her bedroom. You have to go and literally go and stay in an accredited accommodation provider, and we will basically help you and pay for that accommodation for you, as long as basically it's accredited by the institution in which you are studying at. And how it works basically is that there's two ways. We pay directly to that accommodation provider, or we paid in what we call your Fundi card, which is a virtual card that we give you that you can swipe at that accommodation provider. And all it is basically is a simple thing. You just apply a Fundi and then we cover it. And then the reason we do that is because we want to basically have to show that it's a safety for students, and it's also repayments that are applicable over 18-month period. So you are able to basically just focus on just getting in there, getting settled, and leave the rest to basically provide that funding for you. So that part of the accommodation loan, we sort it out and we pay for that as well. And that basically is the gist of what Fundi provides in terms of the accommodation loan. Now, the most important part, guys, is the next slide, which is what do we require? So for us to assist you with the study loans, for us to assist you with these laptops and cell phones and tablets and study desks and all those things, for us to assist you with your accommodation, what do we need and how do we assist you with that? And the criteria is very simple. The applicant must just be permanently employed. The applicant becomes the parent. It can be the sponsor. So let me give an example. I went through school. The person who paid for my fees in terms of the study loan that they took was my uncle. It wasn't necessarily my mom. So that same applies. So the parent or the sponsor, as it's called, is the person who has to be basically permanently employed. That person has to be over the age of 18, and they must be under the age of 65. And the reason for that is if you're under 18, you can't take a loan. You're too young. Yeah, just too young. You can't take a loan. And if you're also under debt review, if you're under sequestration or administration, you can't also take a loan because legally you're prohibited to do it because you're under debt review or sequestration or under administration. And that's basically the qualifying criteria. There is no other qualifying criteria that we use. And the other part basically is the administrative requirements. So what are you going to need from to give to Fundi? We're going to basically need a simple fully completed application form that is signed. And the application form is really simple, guys. It's a 2-pager, and the rest of the other pages is just the legalese that we prefer you to read and make sure that you understand. But most of you don't read. We'll talk about that when you apply. it's really a simple two-pager. It's all about who is applying, who is the student, where are they trying to study, and how much is going to cost for their studies. That's really what the application form is. And then we need a certified copy, not older than 3 months, of the person applying. And then we need a pay slip, and that is not older than 3 months. And then we need a quotation or a statement from the institution. So we just need a quotation that says, we are basically Eduvos. Student X is going to need so much to register, or they're going to need so much for their outstanding fees, or they're going to need so much for their total fees. And we're able to assist with that. The same applies if you're going to get an accommodation. If you're going to basically get an accommodation that's provided by Eduvos, the same thing we require, just a quotation. Or you're going to be staying off campus in a private residence. As long as they're accredited, we just need a quotation as well. Simple as that. And then we are able to assist. And then, so how does it all work? What is the process? Once you have basically gone through the qualifying criterion, which are, like I said, is simple, and then you've given us the simple documents that we have required, we just basically take your documents, we process them on our system, and then we inform you within 2 hours of the outcome. We give you basically a yeah and nay. And the yeah or nay comes through in the form of an SMS, or you get a call from a consultant if you're dealing face-to-face with a consultant, or if you're basically going through the branches and you're just basically doing it online, you get an SMS that says it's approved. And then your finance approved is submitted to our finance department, and our finance department basically do what we call disbursement. Just means we pay over to your institution, which in this case we just pay over to Eduvos, and then your finances are paid. You'll see that amount reflecting on your student statement. And the same applies with your accommodation. And when it comes to your laptops and so on, we basically just pay your service provider who you have selected your laptop with, and then boom, within a few days you get a delivery, and you open your box and there's your laptop and whatever else that you needed, your cell phone, and so on. And those are the requirements that we literally put our customers through. It really is that simple. There is no other requirements. We don't take collateral. We don't ask you for all sorts of things. We don't ask you to basically bring us certified copies of this and that. None of that stuff that you normally would typically go through in the bank when you're actually asking for funding. And that's really, guys, in a nutshell, what Fundi provides in terms of funding requirements. It really is that simple. And the last part of what I'm presenting to you guys is, so where do you find Fundi? So we are basically have a footprint across the country. And we have a head office in Hendrik Potgieter, which is Belton Peter Park. For those who don't know, that's 14th Avenue, just across basically MTN. That's where head office is. Then we have Johannesburg, we have Braamfontein, we have Pretoria in Tramshed, we have Polokwane in Landos Mare Street. It's a very busy street, that one. We have Nelspruit in the Nedbank building. We have Umtata, we have East London, we have PE, we have Durban, and we have regional offices as well. And you can call those regional offices basically for them to assist you. And also we have the call center. So all that information you can also even find on Fundi's website. Or you can just call the call center and they will be able to assist you if you don't want to basically go into any walk-in centers. And our operating hours are between 8 o'clock and 4:30, and we are able to assist throughout. Obviously, like I was saying to you guys, we are easy to find, we're easy basically to apply. All you have to basically, if you need, is take any of the details with the region that is closest to you, and we are able to basically assist you with that. Or just call the call center and ask them basically for where you live, and they'll give you the address of the nearest branch to you. And in a nutshell, guys, that is Fundi. Simple education finance. Thank you.
Hi, Duncan. Just to wrap up a little bit, I'm seeing a recurrent question in the chat box. So I'm thinking that some people didn't have access to the chat early enough. Is it possible for you to explain the repayment terms while the student is studying? Would the parent be paying the interest only, or what would the term typically be like while they're studying?
That's an excellent question. So the repayment works as well. And I'm going to be practical. And when I say practical, I'm going to basically give you a journey and a scenario. So I am Duncan. I'm a student. I want to study. And we're going to take basically and say Claudia, even though she has very nice hair, is my parent. And she'll basically be taking out a Fundi study loan. As my parent, basically she'll be taking out the student loan. Fundi loan will pay over to Eduvos my education fees. When that happens, is that as a parent, she'll be paying the repayment or the installments of that loan over a 36-month period or up to a 36-month period. She can decide whether she wants to pay that over a 3 months, a 6 months, a 12-month. She can decide whether she wants to take out a loan just for registration and pay it over 4 months or 6 months, but she pays it while I'm still studying. The benefit for that is that because the institution, Eduvos, is paid upfront with those fees, the only thing that Claudia, as my parent, just needs to worry about is that simple monthly installment that they need to repay the loan on, and that's really it. And once they're done, they can take another loan if they want. They can take multiple loans if they need to, being an accommodation or books or laptops. The same process applies. While that amount is paid upfront, what happens with that is that the normal installments on a month-to-month for that loan are paid as soon as the funds are paid over to Eduvos as an institution.
That's absolutely fantastic, Duncan. I just have a question, and I think some of the guests might also think of the same thing. So, yes. In terms of taking a loan up with Fundi, do you have specific people that you prefer using to offer the loans to? For example, buying laptops or the student housing. Do you have a list of people that you do recommend to our students?
Yes. So when it comes to laptops, what happens is that you go on what we call our website, and we give students a variety. And you can even go into our website right now and just go basically to technologies. We have a variety of laptops offered by a variety. We call it a take a lot of all things education. But we have a variety of education finance, where you take up a laptop and you normally basically select the laptop that suits you. There's also bundles there as well. And on those bundles, basically, it's just a matter of the student finding the right product that is at the right price and the right bundle. So let's take, for example, I'm interested in a laptop that has a printer and speakers and so on, and someone just wants a simple laptop. Those service providers basically will be there, and I'll just select from them, and then I just get that service provider delivering my laptop to my house. It's really up to the student to select. It's up to them. So Fundi doesn't dictate where do you basically. You just go on that website and select what you want, and Fundi is going to fund it. It's up to you basically as a student to select that. The same applies with accommodations. So for an accommodation, yes, we do have approved accommodation providers, but you can select as a student your own accommodation provider, but the same applies. We need to know that that accommodation is accredited. So what we'll do is we'll also ask the institution, do you recognize this accommodation provider as well? And then we'll put that accommodation provider through a series. So we won't select an accommodation for you, but we want to know if the institution is comfortable having their students in that accommodation place. And once the institution is comfortable to say, we can allow our students to stay at this place, Fundi will fund that accommodation place.
Duncan, I just also want to add and say, I think it's absolutely fantastic that Fundi is dedicated to the student life and to students. We have so many other people that can also offer you loans, but they don't only focus on student loans, but they offer on a variety of loans. And that's absolutely fantastic that Fundi is actually focused solely on the students and what their future holds.
Yeah, and I also like to add, in terms of students who are parents in what we call the public sector, which is basically government employees, and parastatals, which are your ESCOMs. Those ones basically even get a better preferential rate, because simply put is that as a parent who is in the public sector, Fundi doesn't even go as far as to even ask you for a 3-month bank statement. You are highly likely to get approved better than you would get with the banks. And like I was saying, I cannot stress this enough. The preferential rates are quite competitive, and the repayment terms are quite easy to follow as well.
That's fantastic. I would just like to add, if anybody does have questions regarding studying at Eduvos, please don't be shy. You can put it in the chat box. One of our consultants will reach you shortly. And also, if you do have questions for Fundi, our consultants also have a relationship with them, so we can refer you directly to them, or you yourself can directly contact Fundi as well. But please always remember that you will need a quotation from us so that you can present it to Fundi.
Correct.
Lovely.
All right. So thank you so much, Duncan. Thank you, Ntabi Singh. If anybody has any other questions, we are going to stay on until 5:30, and we will then answer them to the best of our ability, or one of the consultants will contact you.
All right,
No,
Duncan,
yes.
if you can just,
Saying,
sorry for 1 second, if you can just
yes.
also reassure the parents who might be watching, the participants in our chat, in terms of if you have been blacklisted, if you didn't pay your DSTV for a month and whatnot,
Absolutely.
how feasible is this option for them?
Yes, absolutely. Look, guys, it's been for especially for the last 2 years we've been going through this COVID. It's been really tough, and the market conditions have been hard, and everyone has been trying to actually make ends meet by trying to cover year, patch year, and so on. So what Fundi does is, as Fundi, when you apply at Fundi, because we are purely just all about education. We want to know, can you afford the loan that you're taking out for? That's what. Fundi does not go into your credit profile to find out if you're blacklisted on all of that stuff. What Fundi is, and if I can just give you basically the parents and assurance, and for those who don't know basically the history of Fundi, Fundi is also partially 40% owned by government. The reason for that is because government wants to see a very educated society. And because of that, we have a mandate not to basically go and figure out whether your credit card was paid last month, and figure out whether your DSTV was taken care of, or whether your car installment 4 months ago was paid, like you would do with the bank. Fundi just wants to know, is the education journey that you're trying to embark on going to happen at an accredited institution? And can you afford the repayment? Once those things are satisfied, Fundi basically is highly likely to fund you, regardless of whether you're blacklisted or not, because Fundi is not about basically to figure out whether your other personal loan is paid for or not. Fundi just wants to know, are you basically going to get through this journey of educating yourself or your loved ones, and are you able to repay that loan? The other things Fundi basically puts aside and basically just funds. So you're highly likely to get approved by Fundi, but more than anyone else.
I see somebody here saying they won't be able to afford the loan. That is not a problem. Remember, if you do have a family member who can help you out, that is always an option. And then at Eduvos, we do have a list of bursary providers as well, and we will be running a scholarship. So if you are somebody who is actually very good in your schoolwork, you might be lucky enough to get the scholarship. So if you can maybe drop your email address in the chat box, and one of our consultants can contact you, and you just need to indicate what campus you would like to study at.
All right, I think, Claudia, if we can just put up on the screen the last slide, which is the contact details for Fundi. We would like to thank everyone who's been able to join us. This is us wrapping up, as there is a second session coming up after us. Thank you very much for your participation. Contact details you will see in the presentation shortly, and you can contact Fundi directly to ask them further.
Yeah, no, Tabin, Claudie, thank you for having us, guys. And we like to basically assure parents and students, education is a journey. It's something that needs to happen. And good luck with that journey. And we are here as Fundi to assist any parents that basically need funding for their studies.
Thank you.